Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. Who am I? Well, my name is John Campea. I will be your host today. Thank you so much for being here. It is an honor, as it is every day, as you, my international friends, join us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, and all that sorts of good stuff. And joining me back on this glorious Monday, it's a Memorial Day here in the United States, as a matter of fact, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing really well. I want to thank all of our past and present members of all branches of the military for their service. My father was a World War II veteran. He's not with us anymore. He once flew on a plane with Douglas MacArthur.
Well, my grandfather was in the Canadian Armed Forces, but my grandfather was in the Armed Forces as well. And also joining us here today, filling in for Ashley, who is still off on her trip on the East Coast, is our friend Corey Takei. Corey, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for bringing me on again.
How is, what's that shirt you're rocking there? Is that a John Cena shirt?
John Cena!
That's a pretty rocking shirt. I do like the 8-bit John Cena thing going on. All right, listen, guys, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to talk about here today. But listen, I want you to do me a favor. While we're talking about all the topics, and you can see in the description of this video what all the topics we're going to be discussing here today, if you've got a thought or opinion about one of the topics and you want to share it, you can jump on Twitter, tweet out your thought. Now, don't send out questions. We're not taking questions via Twitter. But if you've got a thought or opinion on one of the topics we discuss here today, jump on Twitter, tweet it out, and put in the hashtag TJC Show. That's, of course, the John Campea Show. Hashtag TJC Show. And I'll pick out a couple of your tweets, and we'll show them here on the show a little bit later. All right, guys, let's now move on to our main topics of the day. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? It's really rather simple. You see, you guys pick them out by going to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you're there, fill out the form with your question or topic, hit submit, and maybe, just maybe, you might see your message featured here on the John Campea Show. With that down out of the way, Corey, what is our first main topic today?
First one out of the gates, John Durek. John, did you see on Twitter that there is a push for hashtag Make Solo 2 happen? I like Solo. Do you think Lucasfilm would make a Solo 2 as a movie or Disney Plus show? Thank you all for the great work that you do.
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of Solo. I am. That was a movie that started, it's kind of like, what was that, World War Z. It was kind of like World War Z, a movie that went into a lot of drama and a lot of mess behind the scenes, got retooled, and actually turned out pretty good for it. And I thought Solo was a really wonderful film. I thought the kid playing Solo did great. I thought the cast was wonderful. I thought it was just a good, solid space adventure movie. Fun for the whole family sort of thing. The problem is, it became the first Star Wars movie in history that actually lost money. Now, if they didn't have to reshoot the whole damn movie, it would have been profitable. But they did have to reshoot it. The expenses got way higher, and that ended up with them, even though they made about $400 million, the movie actually lost money. Now, anyway, there was started this campaign on Twitter to get people to retweet this hashtag Make Solo 2 happen. And anyway, one of the writers of Solo, John Kasdan, got on Twitter, and he actually replied to it, and he wrote this: "Beyond grateful and galvanized by the Make Solo 2 happen energy on Twitter today, means so much to everyone involved, and your enthusiasm makes it possible for us to keep advocating for it, because the maker knows there's a war story in a galaxy far, far away that is yet to be told." Rob, you had a chance, you've seen this, you've heard them talking about this and all this kind of stuff. Do you actually think it's possible they could end up doing a Solo 2? Is there any reality in which that is a possibility?
Well, as you pointed out, I mean, the movie was not profitable, but that was really because of the production issues that it suffered. I think Solo is a movie that's going to be rediscovered. I think people, when they watch it, I have people tweeting to me all the time, I watched Solo, I thought it was a train wreck, I skipped it. I found it surprisingly enjoyable. I think I equate it to sort of a mid-level James Bond movie like GoldenEye. I really liked GoldenEye. Is GoldenEye the best James Bond movie? No, but it was a solid entry in the series. I think Solo, I really enjoyed it. And like you and I have talked about many times, it came out too soon to a movie with the original Han Solo dying. If it had come down, if they'd made a Kenobi trilogy or a Boba Fett movie and then done young Solo, maybe. But there was a lot of strikes against it. But watching it again, I really like it. Now, hopefully with the rediscovery of the film on ancillary markets, and maybe it'll do well on Disney Plus, I don't know. Why not do a limited series like on Disney Plus or a movie? There's really some great opportunities to explore that world because I think it's worth exploring. I really liked it.
But Rob, let me ask you this though: with the financial reality, though,
Yeah.
is there any way from a business point of view they could actually pull something like that off, or would even try doing something like that?
Probably. I mean, probably. Look, it doesn't make that much sense from production, from a monetary standpoint.
Right.
However, you know what? I think if they keep the costs down, and the fact that every time they're going to make another one of these Star Wars series, they're going to have more practical props, they're going to have more stuff that they can use.
Yeah.
They amortize the cost of the other 3 shows they're going to make with the Cassian Andor series, with the Mandalorian series, with whatever their 3rd series is going to be. They could do, why not do a solo miniseries and keep it the costs limited? I think they might be surprised how many people would dig it.
My problem here is this. While I enjoy Solo a lot, I had a very good time with that movie. The reality is the same problem that existed for me going into this movie, which was nobody has asked for a Harrison Ford-less Solo movie. That's still a factor here.
Right.
And I did enjoy that movie. I liked what they did. Childish Gambino was great in it. The big surprise at the end I thought was really cool and actually does fit within canon if you know all the canon, and all that worked a lot. I just think that initial problem is still there, even though the movie turned out great and I enjoy it and I'm happy. I'm happy it got made, even though I never wanted it in the first place. I just don't know from a dollars and cents point of view, this is something that they would look at. I think, look, the way it kind of stumbled made them reevaluate even how many movies they wanted to put out a year,
right.
Even though that was never the issue, and we all know that. But would Bob Iger at this point actually feel comfortable and want to go back and do another Solo movie? I got my doubts, man.
I do too. But it could be one of those things. I never thought they were going to make a Tron 2 either. And
Yeah.
and they went back because Tron over the years, it didn't do as well as I hoped. The movie wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But I think
out of time. We got to move on. Next topic.
Look
All
at
right.
that.
What is the next topic today?
Martin Gray, greetings and salutations. So it seemed pretty clear to me that Mystique is dying from the trailers, but did you see that the director is also saying there will be other major deaths in X-Men Dark Phoenix? Do you think he should be spoiling information like that? And who else do you think may bite it before the movie is done?
Yeah, there is for those you did not see, Simon Kinberg just recently got out. He's the director of the new X-Men Dark Phoenix, and he was talking about the film. Now, a lot of people kind of, let's say, figured out, Rob, from the first trailer, hey man, it looks like Mystique dies, and pretty much he's confirmed that. And he was asked about, why is this happening? But he goes on to say that and suggest that there could even be more people dying, significant character deaths in X-Men Dark Phoenix. This is what Simon Kinberg had to say. Kinberg has said that he made the decision to reveal, talking about letting us see that Mystique dies in the movie. Simon Kinberg has said that he made the decision to reveal that this early plot point in order show the high stakes the X-Men will be dealing with during the last film in the franchise. Mystique won't be the only character to say goodbye in Dark Phoenix either. There are certainly other major casualties in this. There are also certain other major casualties in this. Rob, let me ask you 2 questions. Question number 1. I understand he wanted to let the audience know that there are going to be major consequences in this movie, so let them see the Mystique dies. Was it a good idea to basically reveal in the trailers that Mystique dies in this thing? And what other characters do you think could be these major casualties that he's talking about?
Well, aside from Simon Kinberg's directing career? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just making a joke. I'm making a joke. Look, I never think it's a good thing to reveal plot points in trailers or in interviews before the movies come out because, clearly they insinuate Mystique dies. Maybe Jennifer Lawrence had that in her contract that she had to be offed in this movie. But maybe Magneto gets killed. We've seen Magneto. He's a guy that has put up with a lot in these movies. Charles Xavier might die. Are we going to now have? I guess we're going to have to start an X-Men Deadpool now, like we had for Endgame, and talk about this. I think really what's dying here is the entire Fox X franchise. That's what they're doing because this is the end. This is the end of 20th Century Fox's stewardship of the X-Men. It's gone on for 19 years. I think it's been a good run. We've got some good movies, some terrific films, and some not so good movies. But I'll be actually, to be honest, sorry to see it go.
Yeah, look, they've had, like you said, they've had some not so good movies, absolutely, but some of the greatest comic book movies of all time have come out of Fox's stewardship of the X-Men franchise. Whether you're talking about X-Men 1, X-Men 2, you're talking about a lot of people love First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, Logan, Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2. They've done a lot of really cool things. Getting back to the topic at hand, look, I understand what Simon Kinberg's talking about here with I wanted to let the audience know there's big stakes. You don't give away such a major character. I mean, look, if this was her first appearance in these movies, fine. But this is a character who's been around this entire faux reboot of the series ever since when they brought in the new character. You don't give away that character's death. I don't care. Look, I understand the motivation behind it, but that doesn't trump that you can't give away such a major plot point in that. Killing other major characters makes sense because it's the last one. So here's my quick guesses. I believe Magneto dies in this thing. I believe Magneto will die in this thing. I think Charles will die in this thing. And I think Beast will die in this thing. Because it's the last film. It's the last film. So, anyway, Rob, if you had to guess which ones may bite the bullet, like out of all the major characters we're talking about, which ones could you put the higher odds on? Well, like I said, I think
Magneto, too. I think Magneto's on the top of my list. But I didn't think about Beast dying, but I think Magneto, probably Charles, because that's the central conflict is right there. She probably will say something like, I'm going to get rid of both of you and shape a new world. But I could see, why not all of them? Kill off the whole team. You know, they've done Mystique dirty twice. They did her dirty in X-Men 3, The Last Stand, when she had her powers taken away and Magneto cast her aside. Now they're going to kill her again. I mean, it's like, what do you got against blue people, man? What's the prejudice against blue people and hot blonde blue people? Not good.
I don't know. Given a character a big epic death, though, I don't know if that's doing them dirty. I think that's something.
But in X-Men, no. But I mean, they weren't given epic deaths. I mean, it looks like she gets killed in this movie on a suburban street, just trying to talk to Dark Phoenix, and then Rebecca Romijn had her powers taken away, and then Magneto casts her out.
Oh, that was a different one altogether. But yep, you're right about that. Okay, let's move on now to our third main topic today. Corey, what is our third main topic today?
Third topic. Yale N writes, "Hi, John. I know you've been saying for a long time now that Lion King was going to be a monster at the box office, but did you see the first projection numbers that just came out for it? They're basically saying it's going to have a bigger opening weekend than Avengers Infinity War. I never would have thought that possible. Do you think these numbers are way too optimistic, or do you really think it could be that big?"
All right, so for those of you who are missing out, there's a couple of different sets of numbers that have been coming out right now. We've all known for a while that Lion King is going to be huge. We know it's going to be big. There are two different sets of projection numbers come out. One that's being reported is between 180 and 230 million dollars. That's a big gap, whatever. But I'm also hearing that Disney's internal tracking right now is putting anywhere between 220 and 265 million dollars. If those numbers hold up, let's put this in context a little bit. Now, of course, the brand new opening weekend box office record, which is not going to be touched for a while, not for a little while, is Avengers Endgame at $357 million. What's key, though, here is that Avengers Infinity War, which broke the opening weekend record last year, sits at $257 million. And of course, we got Force Awakens at $247, Last Jedi at $220, and Jurassic World at $208. If Lion King were able to come in at a number that, say, was more reflective of the Disney's internal projections, like somewhere around 220 to 265, it could get 260, 261, 262, whatever. We are talking about Lion King actually having a bigger opening weekend than what Avengers Infinity War did, which is absolutely astronomically huge. Now, I know there are going to be some people that are going to say, well, John, Endgame projected 280 and it opened at 350. So if they're projecting 250 for Lion King, it's going to open over 300. That was rare. That doesn't happen often. 95% of the time, the projections usually come within about 5% of what the box office actually ends up being. Normally, there are exceptions. Endgame was a huge one, obviously. I wouldn't expect Lion King to have that sort of a massive gap between what the projection numbers are and what the overall number is. So I wouldn't expect that kind of a gap. But even if it doesn't, this is huge. Rob, let me ask you the question that they just asked us. Do you think these numbers could actually hold? Could we see Lion King open in that 220, 230, 250, 260 million dollar range? And do you think ultimately maybe it could top Infinity War?
Well, you and I have talked about this, that this movie is a juggernaut, and we've speculated that it could even do $2 billion.
Yeah.
I think it could. I think a $250 million opening weekend is not out of the realm of possibility, especially after we saw Avengers Endgame open to $350 million, or what, 357? Everyone loves Lion King. I mean, Lion King has, talk about a 4-quadrant film. It was the animated movie. It was then, of course, the Broadway show that I loved. Everybody loves Lion King. You've got 25 years of brand recognition behind this movie. It's one of the most beloved Disney animated classics, certainly probably their greatest modern classic. And I think that, man, I wouldn't bet against this movie I don't think it's going to surpass Endgame. I don't.
Oh, of course not. No.
Because you know what? You're not going to get the 16 to 25-year-olds to come out for Lion King as much as they were going to come out for Endgame, I don't think. And probably the 50-year-old geeks like myself, same thing. But I really want to see this movie. I love Favreau's Jungle Book.
Oh, yeah.
I loved it more than I thought I was going to love it. And this movie, after what we saw at CinemaCon, the clips they've released, I'm dying to see this movie. I think this movie's going to be next level. I think this movie's going to be huge. I think it's going to be the second biggest movie of the year. I think it's going to be surpass Star Wars. I think it's going to be, Disney is going to make, if they make $2 billion off this, that's a studio that made two $2 billion movies in a summer. I can't even imagine. You know, I know from our squash game and our lunch yesterday at Jeffrey's in Malibu that Bob Iger's very excited about this movie. So he's already sitting there, you know, feeling his wallet. He knows it's going to get fatter as the summer goes by.
We're talking about, first of all, there's only been a small handful of $2 billion films in history. We're talking, they could have two $2 billion films in 1 year. I don't think Frozen is going to get there. I don't think Star Wars Episode 9 is going to get there. I don't think Toy Story 4 is going to get there. But it is possible they can get two on this. So let me ask you, Rob, straight up. Buy or sell? This is our buy and sell question of the day. Lion King will top Infinity War opening weekend box office. Buy or sell?
A sell.
You're going to sell? You know what? I think it's going to get close, but I'm going to sell it also. And that brings me to the buy and sell question of the day for you guys. Listen, I want to know, do you buy that Lion King will actually top Infinity War? I think it's going to be real close, but I think it's going to come a little bit short. Go to my Twitter account, simply at John Campea. You'll see the buy or sell question there today. Hit the response, and we'll visit the responses here just a little bit later in the show. All right, with that down, what is our... Oh, actually, now that we're talking about box office stuff, I should use this moment because this is a good segue. If we're talking about box office, we got to talk about one of our sponsors of today's show, which is Fanjecture.com. You guys know I've been playing Fanjecture. It's a great kind of basically fantasy sports, but for movie fans on box office stuff. We want to thank Fanjecture.com for being one of our sponsors. It's a fun site to go on to. So here, check this out.
Show off your box office prediction skills. With Fanjecture. Fantasy sports for film fans. Play games like Fantasy Film Book, a sportsbook style game where the top films from the box office are matched up and given a spread and a total. Do your research and make your picks. Track your results as the box office numbers roll in. Compete for prizes every week. Always absolutely free. Want to enhance your gaming experience? Become a Patreon supporter for exclusive contests and content, weekly voting on future prizes, and play alongside your favorite film personalities. Visit Fanjecture.com to learn more and play today.
All right, and we want to thank the good folks over at Fanjecture.com for being a sponsor of the John Campea Show. Thanks so much. All right, with that down, let's now move on to the next main topic today. What is our next main topic today, Corey?
Next one, Jordan Rye. I read a story this morning that said the next Kingsman movie will be one that wraps up the story of Eggsy and Harry. Do you think that basically means that franchise is over, or do you think they'll keep going with spin-off characters moving forward? I love the first movie, but not so much the second one. So I'm not even sure how much I'm looking forward to another one.
You know what? That first Kingsman movie was one of those. We talk every once in a while about these surprise movies, like movies you weren't expecting a lot out of, and for whatever reason, the first John Wick comes to mind. This was another one. I thought, okay, a little thing, all right, but I like Matthew Vaughn a lot, so yeah, let's check this out. And it just jumped off the screen, grabbed you by the throat, and made you fall in love with it. I love that movie. I was super excited for the second one. Honestly, I think it's a bad movie. I remember seeing it the first time it came out. Okay, well, that was still all right. Just wasn't as good as the first one. Then I watched it again. I'm like, no, this just isn't a good movie. They took some of the silly fun. They did some silly fun in the first Kingsman. They gave it a really nice, fun balance. But then it just went all silliness, it felt like, in the second one. And they really went too far in that direction. Like, the Elton John stuff the first gag was funny. The fifth gag was, God, are you doing this again? Like, now, box office wise, the second Kingsman did almost as good as the first one. So right around $412 million, the second one, which is not bad. I got to tell you, Rob, I'm not all that excited about seeing where they go from here. Now, in hearing about, they're talking about wrapping up the Eggsy and Harry story, this is specifically what's being written about this right now. Director Matthew Vaughn said that the forthcoming Kingsman 3 will wrap up the saga of Eggsy and his mentor, Harry. Vaughn told Digital Spy, "We've got to finish off the Eggsy and Harry relationship. The final chapter of their relationship needs to be told, which we've got ready to do, and I'm hoping to shoot that later this year or the beginning of next year." Rob, let me ask you this. Number one, are you even at all excited about the prospect of a Kingsman 3? I know a lot of people are. I got to admit, I'm kind of not, because I didn't like the second one. And if they are talking about wrapping up the Eggsy and Harry story, does that mean they're wrapping up Kingsman at this point? How do you see that?
Well, like you, I really liked the first movie a lot. I liked how there was an interesting tone, that it was serious, and then it did get silly, but then it paid homage to like a lot of the great, the Bond franchise and a lot of other great spy franchises. But like you, I was excited for Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle, and I was disappointed by it. I mean, it even had Julianne Moore in it, and I was like, okay.
Oh, and I love her. I was so excited to see that she was going to be in it.
I was just like you said, it was just, I'm like, the tone was off. It really bummed me out. So I turned my brain off and my heart to that franchise, and I would like to see. Look, if they make a third one, I'll watch it. But I'm certainly not excited for it. And Harry and Eggsy's story was, to my mind, was ended in the first Kingsman anyway, when Harry died.
Right. But of course, then they brought him back, which I don't know how you do a Kingsman 2 without bringing Harry back. Like, that was the thing. Like, I mean, they pretty definitively killed him both through the brain, so they had to come up with something.
And he was great. I love his portrayal of that character.
Colin Firth?
Yeah.
Oh,
he's great.
My God, he's so good in that. He's absolutely fantastic in that. But let's get on to the second part of the question, though. Like, if they do this third one, and it looks like everything's heading that way, but we've seen lots of films that were in development and then don't happen. But let's assume for a second that Kingsman 3 does happen. Do you think them saying they're wrapping up Eggsy and Harry's story, does that pretty definitively, do you think, to you, suggest that, yeah, this is going to be the end of this franchise? Or do you think they're just going to keep going off in different spin-offs?
Depends how much money they make. Like you pointed out, the second one made almost as much as the first. It's a pretty financially successful franchise. Now, we forget now because we're talking about billion-dollar box office, but a movie that doesn't cost $200 million and does $450 million worldwide is a very respectable grossing series. And if it keeps at that level, make all you want. I mean, I just want people to work, and I want to see movies that are good. Hopefully the third one's better than the second.
Well, what do you guys think about this? Are you excited for Kingsman 3? Maybe you guys loved Kingsman 2. Hell, I know there are a few people that actually really, really like that second one. I was disappointed with it. Kind of tempers my expectations for a third. But are you guys excited for it? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, let's now move on to our final main topic of the day. Corey, what's our final main topic today?
Randolph K. I saw Aladdin this weekend and I completely loved it. It came in at #1 at the box office, although a bit lower than I thought it would. Critical reception is mixed, but the audiences seem to love it with an A cinema score and a 93% verified viewer score on Rotten Tomatoes. Do you think positive word of mouth can give Aladdin strong legs to improve its box office performance?
I gotta tell you what, you guys know that I was skeptical about Aladdin. You know I was skeptical about Aladdin, especially when they pushed off the review embargo until the day before the movie came out. And I'm like, well, there's your red flag, whatever. I went in to go see, and you guys saw that I reviewed this earlier this week. I really enjoyed Aladdin. It was so much better than I thought it had any business being. Will Smith was terrific and all that kind of stuff. Now, the majority of critics like it, but a very, very small majority. It's only got like a 58%. But however, everything else across the board right now looks like a big win for Aladdin. Aladdin took number 1 at the box office worldwide in just his first weekend, made $207 million, which is ahead a little bit of where they were initially tracking for worldwide release, which is great. It ain't Avengers numbers, it ain't Star Wars numbers, but considering how much of a mess people like me and some others like me thought this movie was going to be, that's not bad. Right now, the Rotten Tomatoes critic score is at 59%. Again, at least the majority like it, but hey, it's not great, especially for a Disney film. These are not great numbers for a Disney film. However, now that Rotten Tomatoes only uses verified audience members who have proven they've seen the movie and they've verified it with ticket purchases, the Rotten Tomatoes verified audience score is actually sitting at 94% with a cinema score of A. Audiences, and I've been hearing from you guys too, audiences who have been seeing this thing have been enjoying Aladdin for the most part. Not everybody, no movies for everybody at all, but there seems to be a pretty big difference between the critic score and what the audience, both on the Rotten Tomatoes verified audience score and on cinema score as well. So there seems to be a bit of a difference there. Rob, look, this is a movie that had a lot of question marks going into it. From a questionable first couple of trailers, they were right from when they announced Will Smith as being Genie. There were some people pretty unsure about that. Even people who didn't like the movie seemed to like Will Smith as a Genie, though, at this point. Has a decent opening, $80+ million on the 3-day weekend, long weekend, about $105 million, 207 worldwide. Pretty strong, not bad. But listen, do you think with the audience scores right now, which are different than the critics' scores, do you think with these audience scores there can be enough word of mouth that maybe Aladdin could have some pretty decent legs, or do you think this thing's going to wither on the vine?
No, I think it's going to do well. I mean, everyone I've talked to, virtually everyone I've talked to, and the tweets people have sent me and the emails has liked this movie. I haven't heard one person say, it sucked. I mean, normally you get that. First of all, the worst, I hate when people say that about, it's the most ignorant comment you can make about a movie. And no one said that about this movie. People have liked it. And isn't that good? Isn't that what movies are supposed to be? They're supposed to be entertaining. And, look, people can rip on Disney all they want. But between giving us Aladdin, between giving us Endgame, and apparently giving us Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the month of May is doing pretty well for them. And I would say that Disney, if you're going to provide the masses this kind of entertainment, their job is to entertain people. And when they do it well, they should be rewarded. And aren't we rewarded? I mean, I like you, I was dubious about this movie till we were at CinemaCon and we saw that long clip, and I'm like, well, as an old man with one foot in his grave, I wasn't exactly waiting for an Aladdin live action movie, but seeing it, I'm like, if there has to be one in the world, this looks pretty good to me. So I'm glad it's turned out okay, and I think it's not going to wither on the vine. I think people are going to go back. Musicals, if you like that toe tapping thing. And this, apparently people do. There's new songs. I saw a clip from a new song that Naomi Scott sings.
Yeah, Speechless.
Speechless. I liked it. I was like, yeah, okay, great. And if I had kids, I'd take them twice.
I've been talking about this, and every day has been singing the songs and putting on the soundtrack and just has loved this movie. Naomi Scott was in it. I actually saw this great thing. I didn't know James Corden does this thing with this thing. It's called like Crosswalk Concert or something, where they basically got the cast and a whole ton of extras from Aladdin, all dressed in costume in Los Angeles, waited for a crosswalk light to turn on. And Will Smith and everybody, they go into the middle of the crosswalk where the traffic is stopped and start doing Never Had a Friend Like Me or Make Way for Prince Ali. That was what they were singing. And the people in the cars like, what is going on? And then the light turns and they run off the street. It was pretty funny. But yeah, I think this thing's going to have some pretty decent legs. The word of mouth has been pretty positive. Again, this isn't going to be an $800 million film or anything like that, but I think it's going to do well for them, and it certainly turned out better than I thought it was going to. So what did you guys think of Aladdin? Have you had a chance to see it yet? Jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, listen, we are now going to move on to our live questions today. You guys have been firing in a whole ton of live questions, but before we get to that, there's a bunch of other stuff going on in the world of entertainment that we just don't have time to talk about in depth, but we want to make sure you're caught up to date with all that good stuff. So right now, fact checker Jonathan is pleased to present to you today's installment of the Movie News Feed. Check it out.
First up, if you've seen the definitive Nightmare on Elm Street documentary, Never Sleep Again, you are well versed in Robert Englund's history of the franchise. However, how much do you know about the actor's career outside of Elm Street? From Dread Central, the folks who brought us the Fright Night documentary, You're So Cool, Brewster, and the upcoming RoboCop documentary, RoboDoc, Icon, the Robert Englund story is coming soon. In addition to Nightmare on Elm Street, Englund stars in Urban Legend, 2001 Maniacs, Dead and Buried, and Phantom of the Opera. Next up, fans of the singing competition show The Voice, listen up. After 16 seasons on The Voice, Maroon 5 frontman Adam Levine will not be returning to a coach's chair when the NBC singing competition series begins its 17th edition in the fall. Levine has been a coach on the show since its inception in 2011. He will be replaced next season by Gwen Stefani. Voice host Carson Daly announced the switch Friday morning on NBC News Today. Levine addressed his departure in a lengthy Instagram post, writing, "To all of the loyal Voice fans, there's literally no show without you guys. For me, it was time to move on. Your support has meant everything." Next up, we can scratch off one project of director Taika Waititi's, as it is being reported Bubbles, Waititi's long-gestating stop-motion movie about Michael Jackson's chimpanzee, is officially dead. From Slash Film, Waititi was set to co-direct with Mark Gustafson, with Netflix distributing. Waititi has officially departed, and his departure has inspired Netflix to cancel the project entirely. Scheduling difficulties with the live-action Akira he's directing has been blamed. The director attempted to distance the project from Jackson's image and said the following: "I want to focus on telling a story that blends fact and fantasy, about an animal trying to make sense of the world. This film is not about Michael Jackson because that's not a story for me to tell, or a story I'd be comfortable telling. It's about a chimpanzee's fascinating journey through the complex jungle of human life." Next up, Zach Galifianakis' comedic interview sketch series Between Two Ferns, for Funny or Die, is being turned into a film with plans for a global release on Netflix on September 20th. From Dark Horizons, Galifianakis leads the intentionally low-budget-looking interview series where he conducts awkward, combative interviews with famous people ranging from Brad Pitt to Barack Obama, among others. 21 episodes have been produced over the past 10 years, including a Comedy Central special. The synopsis is as follows. Zach Galifianakis dreamed of becoming a star, but when Will Ferrell discovered his public access TV show Between Two Ferns and uploaded it to Funny or Die, Zach became a viral laughing stock. Now, Zach and his crew are taking a road trip to complete a series of high-profile celebrity interviews and restore his reputation. Next up, we've known for some time that a Frasier reboot or continuation starring Kelsey Grammer has been in the works. From Deadline, Grammer was recently spotted in London with a Frasier script. In an interview, the actor had this to say about said script: "That little folder is filled with 6 different ideas that are all in contention for what may be the new Frasier, a continuation of Frasier. They're similar. It's a new life in a new city." He added that an important element would be to replace John Mahoney's Martin Crane after the actor died last year. Of course, John Mahoney died, so you'd need to replace that energy. Perhaps like they did on Cheers with Coach, they found Woody, who had the same kind of sensibility. Frasier ran for 264 episodes and is one of the most celebrated comedy series of the 1990s and 2000s. The show ran on NBC for 11 seasons from 1993 to 2004 and was a spin-off of Cheers, which also ran for 11 seasons from 1982 to 1993. And finally, Toy Story 4's voice actors didn't record their dialogue together at the same time, so some actors got to the end before their co-stars. From Cinema Blend, as Tom Hanks told Ellen on The Ellen Show, Tim Allen actually texted him to see if he had recorded yet, presumably to gauge his reaction. When he found out he hadn't, he warned Tom Hanks about the script's last pages to help prepare his co-star for the film's emotional ending. Hanks said the following: "This is the end of the series, and I had gotten some texts from Tim Allen. These texts that say, 'Have you recorded yet? Have you been in? Have you had a session yet?' I said, 'No, not yet.' Allen says, 'Wait until you see those last pages.' Tough one. Tough one." Tom Hanks went on to concur with Tim Allen's sentiment once he reached those last pages. Those final recording sessions were particularly emotional, as the actor went on to say, "We're saying goodbye to Woody and Buzz and Bonnie's room and Andy and everybody." It was emotional. To be fair, we thought Toy Story 3 was the conclusion to the franchise, so who really knows what the future will hold for Woody and Buzz? Toy Story 4 opens in theaters on June 21st. And that will do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed.
And now you are all caught up to date with all the stuff going on in the world, and a special thanks again to fact checker Jonathan for putting that together for us. All right, with that down and out of the way, guys, let's move on and let's start talking about some of the things you guys want to talk about here as we take your live questions. And for some reason, I'm having a hard time bringing up the live questions. Give me 1 second. I will get around to it. Oh, the joys of being my own being my own tech director at the same time. Hold on a second. I'll get it. Give me a second here. Almost there. Okay. And it's coming, and we're almost there. Oh God, I wish I had a technical director in here. Okay, we're now ready to go. All right, we're gonna move on now to the first live question today. And I'm thinking I'm gonna get some echoing here. Okay, the first live question today comes to us from Matsif Jada, who writes, starting a petition to change John's mind about petitions. Yeah, you're not gonna see that happen. No petitions are gonna change my mind about the uselessness of petitions. Ain't gonna happen. All right, next one here comes to us from Ben Rayner, who writes, over under 2 weeks, Endgame beats Avatar. I'm gonna take under 2 weeks. Like, I remember when it first opened, people were like, oh, it's gonna pass Avatar in like 3 weeks. Of course, that didn't happen because everybody forgets how fast the box office slows down. Some people are even doubting it's gonna catch Avatar now. I don't think you need to worry about that. It's gonna pass Avatar, but like Rob said earlier, it's going to barely pass it, but it will pass it, and I'll say it's going to do it in under 2 weeks. Cameron Wiskovich writes, fun fact, the 1998 American design of Godzilla was rebranded as a separate monster by Toho, Godzilla's original creators, simply named Zilla. Rob, did you know this? I had no idea about that.
I did know this because of the awesome Toho Godzilla movie, Godzilla Final Wars. The real Godzilla kicks Zilla's ass in Sydney, Australia, and it's glorious. And the controller, well, the new version of the controller, even says, I knew that salmon-eating iguana was worthless, or something like that.
All right, let's move. I did not know that.
Toho.
I learn something new every day. All right, Suthius writes, it's over, Mr. C. I have the high ground. That's all I could think in my head in that Game of Thrones finale, or the second last episode when you finally had the Hound versus the Mountain. All I could think about is I could hear the Mountain saying, I have the high ground. I mean, that'll never get old. Matsiv Jada writes, lightning strike broke my 2010 iMac as well. Spooky. I was telling the story the other day. Somebody asked me if I had ever played Skyrim. And I told the story about I was playing Skyrim. I'd been playing Skyrim for 2 to 3 weeks. When the house I was in at the time, I was playing on this great iMac I loved. Lightning strike on the house. I didn't have a power surge protector. My iMac fried. And that was the last time I ever used my iMac. And oddly enough, the last time I ever played Skyrim. But I'm thinking about buying the remastered edition they put out a couple years ago and start playing it again. Suthius writes, have you seen Bill Hader's interview on Conan where deepfake technology is used? The transition from his face to Arnie's face are creepy and realistic. I did not see that, Rob. Have you?
Oh, I did.
What was that
and
like?
He does both Arnold Schwarzenegger and Al Pacino. And he's doing impressions, and so they put it's honestly, it's terrifying. and look, the deep fake technology, we're going to see movie stars resurrected, which I don't like, and more importantly, we're going to see a lot of crazy people, a lot of realistic looking video that isn't real, and we're gonna have a real problem in the next coming years. But it's really interesting to see now.
All right, next one comes to us from, I can't think of a good username, who writes, I've seen people say that the new Terminator movie is feminist. I know, of course, these same people, the next time you see a movie starring 3 guys, which happens all the time, ask them, is this movie anti-women? They'll say, no, of course not. Then why is having women in the lead somehow feminist or anti-man? It's ridiculous.
Do they not see the original Terminator movies? How about the original Star Wars when Princess Leia pretty much kicks ass?
Yeah, well, there you go. But at least there was only, Rob, at least there was only one woman there. At least back then they were reasonable and had only one woman.
This is some rescue.
Suthius writes, maybe your army comes and maybe it's too much for us, but it's all on you, because if we can't protect the earth, you can be damn sure we'll avenge it. Thus began his obsession with world safety. Yeah, well, I think that was kind of like what we learned later was an underlying theme for all the motivations of Tony Stark.
Yeah,
was protecting the world. It's when he goes through that wormhole and sees what's out there. First of all, the best thing about Iron Man 3 was him like dealing with PTSD, because of course you have an experience like that, that's going to change you. And it kind of became, for good and for bad, it became the underpinning kind of motivation of everything that he did, both in his good decisions and his bad decisions. But they always stayed really consistent with that. And it was one of the most interesting things and such a pivotal moment for that character as well. And I think one of the best things they've done in the MCU. Rob, what did you think about that?
Well, I love that. I mean, and they carried it through all the way to the end game. And I thought that the idea that Tony Stark, the most brilliant man on the planet, realizes just what is out there, because he didn't know, until the attack on New York. No one really knew what was out there. We didn't know that there's a whole universe out there of stuff that's a lot more advanced and dangerous than we are. And if you were at the forefront of that, which Tony Stark was, of course he'd be obsessed by it. And the worst happened. He got to watch his worst fears turned. For 5 years, half the planet was decimated because the Avengers failed. And it was kind of poignant what happened at the end, but it was his lifelong obsession after what happened in Avengers, the first one.
And we got a lot more live questions to get to here, but before we get to those live questions, I want to go over and take a look at Twitter, because I asked you guys to fire off on Twitter some of your opinions of some of the topics we've been talking about here today. Let's go over and take a look at some of these right now. This one comes from Simple, who writes, I actually love both of the Kingsman movies. I like the silliness of it, and I'm really looking forward to the third one. I also heard that there is going to be a prequel, so that should be interesting. Yes, and apparently that prequel, as a matter of fact, is supposed to be coming out first. Next one comes from Trey McVelly, who writes, I think the Lion King opening weekend number will heavily depend on their next phase of marketing. Absolutely correct. Leading into the movie coming out. With several big movie releases since their last trailer, the Lion King conversation has died down a little. Yeah, and one thing we should have learned by now, never doubt the Disney marketing machine. Bazinga Guy writes, if Lion King is a hit, I bet they will make a Lion King 2 movie somehow. Well, we already know they're planning on doing a Jungle Book 2, so you're probably not far off from that, Bazinga Guy. All right, Wayne writes, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to let us know Mystique dies if that death is the impetus of the story. That's an interesting point. I believe it will happen early and create the dark mood that is Dark Phoenix. I agree with you, Wayne. I think that is something that's going to happen very early in the film. And Stubble McShave writes, concerning the Solo movie, I think they could do a limited series that focus on a similar character to Solo, someone that's reminiscent to Dash Rendar. That's a name that gets brought up a lot from the extended universe. Han and Co. could be tertiary, thank you, characters featured in single episodes. That is absolutely a possibility as well. Okay, thanks a lot for sending in your thoughts there, guys. We're going to take some Twitter thoughts from you guys every episode moving forward, but now let's get back to the live questions. And we're going to keep things going here now with Suthius, who writes, whether he was or wasn't able to pick up Mjolnir in Ultron, I've always seen him as a worthy, even back when he was scrawny Steve jumping on grenades. Yeah, I don't think being worthy in terms of Odin's enchantment, I think being worthy is kind of like being pregnant. You're not sort of pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. There's no like sorta in there, you know what I mean? I don't think there is a sorta worthy. I think by budging the hammer, I think we saw, okay, Cap's worthy. For whatever reason, maybe he wasn't focusing on enough, he wasn't able to follow through with it, but I think he was worthy then. He couldn't lift it, but I think he was worthy then. Rob, there's a theory out there that, and then some people have proposed this as a retcon later, that, oh, Cap could have picked it up. He just didn't want to embarrass Thor. I don't buy that for a second.
No way.
Yeah, no, and that anybody suggesting that's retcon, even people in Disney suggesting that, I think that's all retcon.
By the way,
I don't see that at all.
Cap wouldn't do that.
No, he wouldn't.
He would pick up, if he could pick up the hammer, he'd pick up the hammer. That's the honest thing to do. That's why he's worthy. By not picking up to spare someone's feelings, that's a lie.
That's a very good point, which would make him unworthy. I like that. All right, Chris Feldman writes, can't believe Tom Cruise hasn't won an Oscar. It is weird to think about that. Neither have Johnny Depp, Amy Adams, Ed Harris, Annette Bening, Ed Norton, or Glenn Close, so maybe someday. It just goes to show. You know, Rob, I talk about this all the time. People do not appreciate just how hard winning an Oscar is. Not just because you've got to give the best performance of your life. You've got to give the best performance of your life while keeping your fingers crossed that some other yoo-hoo doesn't come in there and give the best performance of their life that just happens to be a little bit better than you that year. And it's not you against 5 other people. It's you against 500 other people every year. It is a remarkable feat to win an Oscar. That's why, even a John Williams, how many nominations does he have? 735? It's somewhere around 700. But he's won 3 or 4. I can't even remember how many he's won. But it's just kind of huge. Can you think of any other big names off the top of your head that, like, whether behind or in front of the camera, that maybe have never won an Academy Award? I mean, like
Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, he never won.
He
one.
won an honorary Oscar.
That's right.
Stanley Kubrick, my favorite director of all time, honorary Oscar, never won real Oscars. I mean, it's amazing that you think about giants of cinema who've never won Oscars. But, you know, why hasn't Glenn Close won?
And it wasn't until The Departed that Martin Scorsese finally got one. Like, it was crazy. So
Paul Newman didn't win one until Color Money.
I still remember one of the funniest jokes ever at the Oscars. I believe it was Jon Stewart was hosting that year. It was the year of The Departed. And earlier in the episode, Hard Out There for a Pimp won Best Song by, what's the name of the group again? The something Mafia, I think, is the name of the group. I can't remember the name of the band. The 2-1 Mafia, I can't remember.
3-2 Mafia?
Jon Stewart comes out and he goes, and just for you guys at home keeping score, whatever the name of the band was, 2-1 Mafia, 1 Oscar. Martin Scorsese, 0. It's one of the best lines I've ever seen them do at the Academy Awards. Anyway, it's hard winning these awards, man. Okay, we move on now. Rodrigo Ortiz writes, water, no thank you, sir. Fish make love in it. I don't know the reference. Do you?
It rings a bell, and I'm not.
All right, I'm stumped. Murray Reich writes, saw Booksmart and it was pretty good, but I felt like it wasn't as great as the critics say. Some humor worked, some didn't. I feel like Superbad did it better. It is crazy how many people I've been getting writing to me about Booksmart.
Yeah.
Because I am hearing, like, both from viewers and from fellow critics and stuff like that. I haven't gone to see Booksmart yet. I skipped the screening at CinemaCon and now I'm kicking myself for it. But people are writing to me and telling me they freaking love this movie. Like, I got people writing to me saying this is now a top 5 all-time favorite comedy for them. Now, which is surprising me, Rob, because I look at the trailers and I thought they look fine. And I'm cheering for it because I've always liked Olivia Wilde and now she's directing it. So I'm cheering for it, but I thought it looked okay, but certainly nothing special. But I'm hearing, other than what you just said, Murray, which is great, I've heard nothing else but rave things from people. Rob, have you heard anything from people about this?
Yeah, and people seem to really, really love it. Again, I keep getting asked about if I've seen the movie before. The first 6 minutes are available online, and I did watch them, and they're funny. But and I've read the iffy things about it as well. But it seems to me like this new strain of movies, even watching the first 6 minutes, I thought was really well done. But I'm like, these kids don't really seem like they're in high school. Maybe that's just because I'm out of touch. But it seemed like it was faux high school as opposed to real high school. Like, look, I love Easy A, the movie.
I love that movie. Yeah.
I loved Easy A, and as much as I loved it, I'm like, this does not feel like it's a real high school at all. Where everybody is so hip and so cool and so funny and so witty, and everything that dribbles out of everybody's mouths, it has been written by a screenwriter. That's how it feels to me. But I want to see Booksmart. I've watched Olivia Wilde's. I heard her on NPR. I've been watching a lot of talk show appearances that she's made, and I'm pulling for her because I think it's great. She certainly has a voice. So let's see more from her.
All right, let's move on here. Jared's Reviews writes, wanted to send a super chat saying you all do an excellent job on the show and give us great debates and insight on movies and news every day. Thank you. No, thank you, Jared. It's always great when someone just wants to send in something to say something nice. So thanks, man. You just made my day. All right, Patrick Conway writes, John, Ashley, or Kaori, who's here today, and Rob should go breakdancing live. I can assure you that will never happen.
Come on, man. You were in a crew. We should start up again. We should practice. It'll be like CrossFit, but different. Get out there and perform. Go to malls and stuff.
It ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So just put those ideas away.
Not even at Comic-Con? We can put on costumes?
Not even at Comic-Con, which, by the way, I'm going to be at Comic-Con this year. I'll make more announcements about that later. All right, K Major writes, Mark Ruffalo tweeted his compilation video of the MCU crew behind the scenes over the years, made my heart happy and sad. You know what? I've been seeing a lot of people talking about this online. I didn't have a chance to sit down and watch it, but everybody's talking about this thing. Did you guys have a chance to see it? Because everybody's saying it's just really moving and really wonderful. Rob, did you see this yet?
I have not seen it.
Yeah,
so I have not.
I got to get around to watching that. I've seen a whole bunch of people talking about it. Chris Feldman writes, have you ever been to the Field of Dreams movie site in Iowa? I've never been to Iowa, so no. They still have the baseball diamond carved into the cornfield. Pretty cool to see it live. I think that is awesome. Like if it's practically possible, if you have some iconic movie sets, leave them. If possible, if that's practical and if it's possible, leave them. Because we were watching the Game of Thrones documentary last night, which was awesome, by the way. But they were, while watching it, and they're talking about now finishing with these sets, and they're tearing down these sets, and we're like, a bunch of us were sitting around here going, why would you tear this down? Like, leave this up. This is television history. But because of where the location was, it's just not practical. If you've got a set like Field of Dreams that's in a place that you don't really need for a hell of a lot else, keep it up, because that can be a tourist attraction forever. Rob, have you ever been to an iconic movie set or things like that where you've been able to enjoy it?
Well, I've been to Point Doom or places where they end up Planet of the Apes. I've been up to Vasquez Rocks where they shot 1 million Star Trek episodes and every other movie in the world. But I haven't been to I have not sought out iconic movie constructed sets, but
Right.
I've been to famous locations,
locales and things like that. All right, Curtis Lopez writes, weird question, but since Aladdin is a diamond in the rough, can he pick up Mjolnir? Can Aladdin pick up Mjolnir? You know what, Rob, I'm going to say yes, and here's why I'll say yes. When Odin put the enchantment on the hammer, one of the things, what he said specifically, I think this is word for word, I could be off by a word or two, but basically said, before he put the enchantment on, he screamed at Thor, you are a selfish, cruel, spoiled boy, or something along those lines. Selfish was definitely one of them, cruel, and there might have been one other thing in there as well. Aladdin is none of those things. Aladdin isn't selfish or self-centered or cruel. Even though he's starving and stealing his own food, he gives away the food to a child who's more hungry than him. I mean, he's none of those things. I will go out on a limb, Rob, and say Aladdin could have lifted Mjolnir. I'm going on the record and saying that. What do you think?
Well, I can't. Your logic is sound, John. I too think Aladdin can wield that hammer. Now I want to see a crossover.
Aladdin. We see the gods of Asgard come to Agrabah.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
All right, let's move on here. Justin Goodwin writes, I recently heard some were offended by Endgame's inclusivity, so they created a new cut on 4chan by editing out said minorities and women, among other things. Seriously, some people. And by the way, Julius, thank you so much for that. That's a really big super chat. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level. Yes, the thing exists. And again, it's just one of those things where, here's the funny thing. Not everything out there is racism and chauvinism, guys. Sometimes people just don't like certain things, and it doesn't automatically mean it's racism and chauvinism. Let's be clear about that. But then there are some people, Rob, who are in such utter denial that such things exist at all. There is no racism or chauvinism out there. It's like, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, there kind of obviously is. And it's weak and it's sad and it's pathetic and it's made by insecure little boys who have no sense of their own masculinity and are threatened by a little bit of thunder in the background. It's kind of sad. It's pretty weak. It's awfully pathetic. And it makes all film fans look bad. So I don't know. Have you seen this thing or have you heard of this thing before?
No, but I'm like,
now.
Here's my advice to these people. Get a passport and start traveling around the world, because there's beautiful women of every color all around this planet, and there's women that you should want to meet. And if you're going to be editing out minorities and women from Avengers movies, you have missed the point of being alive on this planet, because let me tell you, everywhere you go, there are beautiful women of all different shapes, sizes, colors, and creeds, and with that attitude, you're never going to meet any of them.
And I hope they don't. All right. Just Plain Steve writes, Aladdin was great minus Jasmine's last musical scene. Felt really forced and didn't flow with the rest of the movie for me. What did you think? Well, obviously, Just Plain Steve, I can't go into detail on that because I'd be giving away something significant in the movie. I will say this. It did feel a little out of place. Ultimately, the meaning of it, I thought, trumped that. But for those of you who haven't seen the movie, this discussion sounds frustrating because you don't have no idea what I'm talking about. But I'll just say that, generally speaking, at first I did feel like it was a little bit out of place. But then, because it fits so well overall, it worked for me. Again, I can't go into any more detail than that, unfortunately. All right, Darth Impact writes, streaming today, John? I thought you'd be at a barbecue or something. Nope. I streamed. And by the way, as as a Canadian, it's not like I didn't even realize today was a holiday because I'm still not tuned in with a lot of the American holidays and stuff like that. But hey, we still want to talk about movies today, so that's what we're doing. Probably do a little bit of barbecuing later in the day because we do this show in the morning. Like where you are, it might be in the evening or afternoon, but here it's pretty early in the morning, so I still got a lot of my day ahead of me. All right, ZOMG Ruler writes, Disney should remake some bads like Black Cauldron. I don't think so. There's been a lot of discussion, Rob, actually, over the years that if you're going to do a remake of something, remake a failed movie or remake a bad movie. Don't remake classics. And it's like, why would you remake a bad movie when you don't have the advantage of nostalgia, you don't have the advantage of fond memories, you don't have the added thing of, man, I'd love to see a modern take on that and whatever. I don't see why you would do, unless you had a remarkable new fresh take on something that could be great, and then you change the name of the movie so it doesn't bring back bad thoughts about a bad previous movie. I don't see you do that. If you're a studio executive, do you do a remake of a bad movie?
Well, it's no. there's no reason why you should. But if there's a good central premise, that just was not well executed, like if it should have been great and it turned out not so great, but if the premise, or say it's based on a book that was a really good book and the movie just was a misfire, like perhaps Bonfire of the Vanities was, you could go back and remake that book and do a better job. But for the most part, remaking a bad movie, if the movie was bad in the first place, why remake it?
All right. Fried cheese macaroni ball. That is also a cool name, and it's made me hungry. Spoiling old movies is not fair for people born now. Well, tough. I mean, look, here's my thoughts on this. At some point, the film fan community has to be able to openly talk about movies. At some point. Now, look, you could say, hey, spoiling who won the Super Bowl in 1978 is unfair to sports fans born today who might want to go back and watch that game for the first time. Fair enough, but at some point, sports fans got to be able to talk about what has happened, what has transpired. So I'm not saying you're wrong, fried cheese macaroni ball. I'm not saying you're wrong at all. But I think one thing trumps the other. The fact that at some point, movie fans, once a movie has been out for a certain amount of time and it's out of theaters and all that, we got to be able to openly talk at some point about movies. Is that unfortunate for people of a new generation who have never had the chance or never cared to go back and watch? Like, okay, guess what? Rosebud is the sled, all right? Is that unfair to some people who've never had a chance to watch Citizen Kane? Maybe. But we got to be able to talk about movies openly and honestly at some point. So you're not wrong. I just think one principle kind of outweighs the other. That's just the way I see it. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong about that. It's just the way I kind of see it. All right. Frost 1977 writes, was planning to see Godzilla Friday, but the road is underwater near Fort Smith. If you've seen the news, house safe, but it's an extra 30 minutes to town, so the drive. I've been hearing that the East Coast is getting just drenched. Like, absolutely. I was talking to my mom the other day. They've been getting a lot of rain out there. So be safe, everybody out there, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I might pull out a life raft and just dinghy it to go see Godzilla at this point. Now, you've seen Godzilla, Rob.
Yes, I have.
Now that you've had some time to marinate on it, you still excited about it? You still love it?
I loved it so much. It was so much fun. And, as somebody who grew up watching kaiju movies, it was... I always talk about the whimsy that's inherent in some Japanese anime and stuff that we don't have in the West. We just don't quite get it. This movie gets it because they keep trying to make in America Godzilla this serious. I mean, it's serious. It's very serious.
Make sure you don't give anything away.
But the size of monsters, when you're dealing with Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, Ghidorah, there's an element of fun there that I don't think we as Americans totally get. This movie gets it for the first time. It's the first time that an American director tackled this genre and brought it home. It was the perfect melding of the Japanese sensibility with the American sensibility. I love this movie so much. It was awesome. I can't wait to get the 4K disc. I can't wait to play it really at ear-splitting volumes in my house. I can't wait to go see it again. I loved it.
All right, let's move on here. Willow Yang writes, what has been your favorite live-action Disney reboot so far? Jungle Book included. I loved Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella. I loved that movie. But I think I got to go Jungle Book. I think I got to go Jungle Book on that. And it's just so well done, so special. Again, taking nothing away from Cinderella, certainly not Maleficent. I liked Beauty and the Beast, but it's not one of the best ones. All that kind of stuff, but I'm going to go with that. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with Mulan as well. But Rob, which one would you say is your favorite?
I'm going to go with
one?
you because Jungle Book surprised me. I was, first of all, I was kind of blown away by the technology. I was blown away by everything they did. And I was specifically, when the animals did their numbers, Christopher Walken singing.
Oh, so good.
I mean, I was delighted by Jungle Book. And the way none of it was shot outdoors. It was all shot in a warehouse. It even says in the end credits, shot in a warehouse in downtown Los Angeles. I mean, I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. All right, Darth Impact writes, did you see any videos about the ending of Brightburn? I find them fascinating. No, because I still haven't gone to see Brightburn.
Me neither.
I was going to try to go last night. Ann was, of course, off at, what's AEW? They had their big pay-per-view this weekend called
Double or Nothing.
Double or Nothing, that's right. Ann was off at Double or Nothing this weekend, so I couldn't go see it yet. And then we were watching Game of Thrones, the documentary last night. We were thinking about going afterwards, too tired to do it, so I'm going to try to get out to see it today. I'm going to go to Universal Studios today. And there's a big theater there, so I might sneak in to go watch Brightburn today. But no, I've not watched any of those videos yet because I haven't seen the movie yet. Darth Impact writes, A-Force 2024, book it, MCU. Okay, for those of you who don't know, A-Force is kind of the name being given to in Endgame when all the female characters to get together for that big rush trying to get the gauntlet to Ant-Man over there. I think that was the big push to do that. And there have been a lot of talk over the last while. We remember Tessa Thompson dropped something about 6 months ago, Rob, that her and Kevin Feige and a bunch of the female stars of the Avengers films got together and actually talked about the possibility of doing an all-females Avengers movie. And then they throw in that A-Force scene, and there's a growing momentum for people wanting to see it. So we got Darth Impact here saying, Darth Impact saying, we're going to get an A-Force in 2024. Over under 50%. You think that's going to happen, Rob?
You know what? I'm going to go over.
Really? You're going to go over on that?
They're going to do some kind of a female team-up movie. And you know what? Who doesn't want to see that? Who wouldn't want to watch all these actresses get together and kick some ass as superheroines? I don't understand. It's so weird to me that we have male fans out there talking about, Captain Marvel and this and feminist agenda. I'm like, since when did you not want to watch hot women in spandex kicking ass? What world do we live in?
All right, we'll move on now. Jared McBride writes, Happy Memorial Day, everyone. Spend time with your loved ones and barbecue on the grill. Have a great day, Rob, John, Ashley, or it's Corey in here today, and the rest of your crew, and think of the ones we have lost in war. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jared, and everybody out there, to all of our American friends and our friends around the world. Have a wonderful, fabulous day, and like you were saying, Jared, all the things that should go along with it. Thanks for sharing that, man. LeBurn007 writes, Thanks, John, for turning me on to Lucifer. I binged the entire series in just a few weeks. I love it. Hopefully it gets renewed. P.S. I'm in love with Lucifer's mom. Oh, yes. Lucifer's mom is a Canadian actress who was the Cylon in Battlestar Galactica. Trisha Helfer? Yeah, good Canadian kid, by the way, Trisha Helfer. She plays Lucifer's mom in the series, and she's awesome in it. Guys, if you have, I don't know what else to say at this point, LeBron. I'm glad you got on board with it. I've watched season 4 twice all the way through already. I love this show. It sounds like there is hope. I didn't think they would get season 5, but it sounds like there's hope that there will be. Hopefully we'll get an announcement on that pretty soon because I love this show. I love season 4. It's on a big upswing. I gotta see more. You guys, if you haven't started checking out Lucifer yet, go check out Lucifer. All right, Jetfire97 writes, I will not hesitate to let either of you die. Doctor Strange is a man of his word. First Peter, and then Tony. Well, yes, but you also have to keep in mind that if he didn't, then everybody dies anyway, right? I mean, that's the big catch. So, yes, he let Tony die in Endgame. Yes, he let Peter die, but the alternative to that was that everybody dies, including them. So, yes, he's a man of his word, but there really was no other alternative, right, Rob? I mean, if it's really only 1 out of every 13 million.
Right. I don't see that. It's not like he killed them himself.
Right.
He was trying to preserve the universe.
Which is pretty big and pretty important. Okay, we move on here. Terrell Wise writes, over under 30%. Lion King makes $2 billion. You know what? $2 billion is a huge number.
Yeah.
30% is a low number. I'm going to take the over on 30%. If you set the line at like 70, I'd take the under, but at 30%, I'll take the over on that. Rob, what about you? Over under 30% that Lion King makes $2 billion.
I'm going to go under.
Really? Not even under
I think
30%?
I think it could come close, but like you said, $2 billion.
It's a giant number.
It's a huge number, man.
All right. If the line was any higher, I would have taken the under too, but I'm going to go on the over on that. All right. Let's see. Daniel Weiss writes, I'll never get tired of watching John Wick shoot guys in the head. Sorry for the spoilers for John Wick 1, 2, 3, and 4. You would think that at some point you just get a little tired of gun fu. You would think. Like how many different ways and how many times can we see John Wick shoot somebody in the head? The answer
A lot.
is limitless. The answer is limitless, Rob. Can you see yourself getting tired of this?
No, I never watch. Yeah, I like my favorite is when it's really close quarters, like this close. And no, I don't think I'm ever going to get tired of John Wick shooting people in the head, and I can't wait to get the John Wick hot toy.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be a good one. That's going to be a good one. I hope it includes the dog. All right, Patrick Clare writes, good question. Hello from Brazil. I love you guys. Thank you so much, Patrick. My favorite show of all time is Fringe. Watched 5 times all the episodes. What did you guys think about Fringe, and what's the best TV show of all time for you guys? I liked Fringe. Like a lot of great shows, though, I thought it petered off near the end. I thought it kind of started to lose its way a little bit, but those first few seasons were great. And by the way, the girl who's the star of Fringe, she's now one of the stars of Mindhunter.
Anna Torv.
Thank you. She's great in that, by the way. To me, greatest TV show of all time is Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. That's my all-time favorite one. Rob, quick thoughts on Fringe?
Well, I like Fringe. I had friends that worked on Fringe. I thought the show also got much more interesting as it went along, and it could have gone on longer. I really liked it. But the greatest TV show of all time, that's a real tough one for me. I don't think there's... honestly, I would say my favorite television show of all time for different reasons is the original Twilight Zone.
Oh, wow.
I think it's the most influential TV show that's ever been made. But it's an anthology show. So it's different than a show now. But I don't have an answer for you. I'd have to think about that.
All right, let's keep moving here. Ryan Lohner writes, one of two. Anyone wanting a Game of Thrones replacement should check out the 80s anime Legends of the Galactic Heroes.
Oh, my man.
Basically, the sci-fi version of Game of Thrones fantasy, a lot of the same themes and the same boatloads of characters and storylines. And this one actually has a well-paced ending, so / win-win. Well, I think this Game of Thrones did have, well, no, maybe the pace was a little bit off. Maybe I'll give you that. But anyway, Rob, Legend of Galactic Heroes. What is this? I've honestly never even heard about it. This is something good?
Legends of Galactic Heroes is my favorite anime series of all time, bar none.
Really?
And it is the greatest. The original series is 110 episodes. And they've released a remake series over the last couple of years that I've bought but haven't watched because I can't bring myself to watch it. It is epic. It's Lord of the Rings meets World War II in space. There are so many characters. It's basically about 2 warring galactic empires many years in the future, and the 2 military commanders, Yang Wen-li and Reinhard von Lohengrin, who are leading either side. And it is I can't recommend it highly enough. Sentai Filmworks, or the animation company, released a box set for the first time in America. It's $800.
What?
To get the entire series, and it's also got the OAV, the prequel series. There's a name for it.
How can you justify spending $800
because it's awesome, and it comes in a big box, and it's never been. I had my bootleg copies from Hong Kong that were the American subs were terrible. There's been fan sub versions on YouTube, but they've pretty well scrubbed YouTube versions. I had to get it. I mean, it's the greatest anime series of all time. I love it so much. I can't even talk. Don't get me started, but it's incredible. Okay. It's incredible.
Corey, did you ever watch this one? Because I know you're like really big into that sort of stuff.
No, I actually have never seen it, but now I want to.
Yeah, I could just sense you getting more and more excited sitting over there as he's been talking about this.
Now, you know what? The animation, it started out in the late 80s. It took like 15 years to finish the original 110 episodes, but it's so detailed and so it's epic. It's like reading the greatest book you've ever read.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going to have to check this out at some point. All right. Next up, Koa1708 writes, ever notice Dominic Toretto and Xander Cage is basically the same character? We, I mean me, paid money to see Vin Diesel play the same character twice. Not wrong. Not wrong at all. But let's be honest. We've paid a lot of money to see The Rock play kind of the same character in a whole bunch of movies too. And I always love it when they do. The question is not do they play the same character? The question is the movie fun and entertaining and worthy of watching? But yep, I'm going to give you that one. They are basically the same character. No doubt about it. All right, the Crone Doggy writes, Saturday you said give Chernobyl all the Emmys and pump the brakes. It's too early to say what deserves an Oscar. You haven't seen everything yet. Well, of course, I was being facetious when I go, just give Chernobyl all the Emmys. I was obviously using hyperbole there. But no, what I was saying, where that's coming from, is that somebody basically wrote, if Speechless, the song that Naomi Scott sings in Aladdin, it must win Best Song at the Academy Awards. And what I was then kind of said was, like, first of all, the song is great, but let's pump the brakes on saying it needs to win because we haven't even heard any of all the other contending songs that are going to be coming out this year. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. But then when I was talking about Chernobyl, I was like, just hand it all the Emmys right now. But I was obviously using hyperbole and just being a little bit facetious. But Rob, you and I have both seen Chernobyl.
Dude.
At this point. I am floored. Because I hadn't watched it. I only got caught up on it the other night. It's only 3 episodes in, so I popped in all 3 episodes and watched it the other night. And I was just, my jaw was open most of the time. Like the way, first of all, just the true story of Chernobyl is amazing in and of itself, and shaking and heartbreaking and tragic and awe-inspiring all at the same time. But the way they have told this story, because there's 1,000 ways to tell this story wrong, the way they've told this story has kept me riveted, captivated, heartbroken, inspired. The corruption, the humanity, the bravery, the despair. I mean, this thing is, it's one of the best things I've seen on TV in a long time. You've watched the 3 episodes. What are your quick thoughts?
Dude, I always talk about verisimilitude, creating a reality within the frame. This is peak verisimilitude. This is next level television. It's like, I know it's a TV show, but it's like you're there. You're watching this. It feels so real. It is so well acted. It is so, like you said, it's so maddening. It's terrifying. The first episode had me, I was in pain, literally pain, like cringing watching it because it was so disturbing. It is some of the, it shows you the possibility of television as a medium to tell this kind of a story. Craig Mazin, who basically is the guy the executive producer who created the show, I actually worked with at an ad agency in the 90s, and then we worked on a film together called The Specials, and he wrote the Hangover movies, and he's had a pretty interesting career. He's the prime mover responsible for this show, and it's next level, man. I didn't even know he had something like this in him, but it should get all the Emmys. I mean, it's an unbelievable use of this medium, and I implore everybody who wants to see great television to watch it, because my God,
it's real good. It's real good. Orange Hand writes, thoughts on Kit Harington that critics can go F themselves because people worked hard on the final season. Well, look, I didn't hear him say that, so I don't know if he was joking around or whatever. Of course he shouldn't say F the critic. I mean, look, there are people who watch the show. I don't care that everybody worked hard on it. Everybody works hard on everything. All right? The worst movie you can think of, people worked hard to try to make that a good, whatever the most horrible movie you can think of. I'll throw you one out, Catwoman, okay? Whatever we think about Catwoman, one of the worst cinematic films ever made in history, the people who worked on it worked hard, and they wanted it to be good, and they tried their best. That doesn't mean we should not be allowed to give our evaluation of it and say, hey, that movie was terrible.
and Sharon Stone's in it, so it can't be all
Sharon
bad.
Stone's in it, so I mean, he gets credit for that. But yeah, everybody worked hard on Game of Thrones. And if you really want a good example of that, just go watch this documentary they just aired last night. It's incredible how much work they went into that. And I loved this season of Game of Thrones. I loved it. But do not say people don't have the right to criticize if they didn't like it just because you worked hard on it. Everybody works hard on it. If you're going to accept the praise for it, you got to accept the criticism for it. I loved this season of Game of Thrones. I couldn't imagine it ending better unless you gave it a few more episodes. But you cannot just discriminate or poo-poo on people's right to say they didn't like your show just because you worked hard. Good for you. You're supposed to work hard. That's your job. And if other people didn't like it, then they shouldn't keep their mouth shut just because you worked hard, because you just did your job. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. And I love Kit Harington. Love Kit Harington, but he shouldn't have said that. All right. Crone Doggy writes, love the companion videos. You're an amazing companion. Well, thank you so much. I love doing companion videos too. I mean, for those of you who don't know, if you're new to the show here, we have a lot of people send in live questions. We get to as many as we can during the live show, but we don't always have time. Like, we've only got about 15 minutes left in today's broadcast, and we may have some questions still left over. If you send in a question, though, and you're contributing to the show, your question's getting answered in a video. So I take up the unused questions. We do them in companion videos every day. So thank you for acknowledging those, man. I do work hard on those because I do love doing them. I really do, and they're a lot of fun. All right. Caleb Kaiser writes, The Last of Us Part 2 trailer plus release date this week. Rumor hype is real. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'll tell you what. I don't know if... I'm not saying it's the best video game ever. I don't know that I've ever seen a game... Because, Rob, I often say this. Video games are not made for narrative storytelling. Video games are made for gameplay. That's the number one concern, and that's what it should be. Sometimes we use terms like very cinematic for certain video games, but the 2 times, maybe 3 times, I really think, and I'm not saying these are the best video games ever made, but games that are truly cinematic and feel like they were made to be movies, one is Last of Us, one is the more recent God of War, and one is, well, why am I forgetting the name of it? The one Tom Holland's attached to it right now, with the Indiana Jones type of
Uncharted.
Character. Uncharted 4 in particular felt very, very cinematic. Everybody's excited about Last of Us 2. It was a tremendous game, tremendous story, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, the hype is real. And they got to get a movie of this done, Rob, don't they, at some point here?
I would imagine they could. I mean, I know they've tried to develop it. Maybe they will. I really like Last of Us. I think Uncharted was the first time I ever felt like I was playing a movie.
Right.
The first Uncharted. Certainly I did with Last of Us. I mean, it was to me, it was the cutscenes that do it. It's the voice acting, it's the characterization, and coupled with really interesting gameplay that advances a story. Yeah, I would love to see a Last of Us movie, but Last of Us 2, the hype is real, man.
Yep, can't wait to see where they're going to go with that.
Oh
All right, Caleb Kaiser writes, that was The Last of Us 2, sorry. Ryan Lohner writes, how is The Talisman not better known? Easily my favorite Stephen King book I've read, and Peter Straub, full credit. Rob, I've never read The Talisman. I'm gonna take a wild guess here, being a massive Stephen King fan and a book collector. Now, you've read The Talisman?
I have, and I love The Talisman. And, you know, there's been talk. It's not so much now, but even back like when it first came out, there was talk Spielberg was going to do it. I'm surprised it hasn't been done. It's very interesting because even Peter Straub is not as well known as he used to be. Peter Straub was a powerhouse in terms of, he was right up there with Stephen King. I mean, he wrote this book Ghost Story that was turned into not as good a movie as it should have been. A movie called The Haunting of Julia was based on his book Julia, and Peter Straub wrote a book called Floating Dragon that I loved. And then when he and Stephen King teamed up to write The Talisman, this was epic. Like back when this happened, I want to say it was the late 80s. It was it was like these two unbelievable forces coming together to write a novel. It was like Marvel and DC teaming up. It was amazing. And I'm surprised it hasn't gotten made, but you're right. The Talisman is completely fallen out of pop culture consciousness, which is strange to me.
All right, let's move on
But
here.
I'm
Next
old,
one.
John.
You're not that old. Evan Tayment writes, found Aladdin quite disappointing, sad. Wanted to love it. Will Smith was the best part. I need to see it again to solidify. Brightburn was brilliant. I cannot wait to see Brightburn. And hey, man, listen. All film is subjective. Like, I had a really good time with it and love it. That doesn't mean you're supposed to. And your opinion is no less or more valid than mine. If it didn't work for you, that's too bad. But what is interesting here, Evan, is that one of the common threads I'm hearing, even from people that didn't like Aladdin, I'm not hearing a lot of those, but even those that do dislike Aladdin are kind of saying exactly what you're saying, that, yeah, Aladdin maybe not so good. Will Smith was great. And Will Smith was kind of like the biggest worry a lot of us had going into the movie, him being the thing, but he really does crush it in that as well. And I can't wait to see Brightburn. Crone Doggy writes, actors seem larger than life on the big screen. Yeah, they do. It's weird for me to think I tower over Bane, Tom Hardy. Do you ever feel this meeting celebs? Yeah, that I did at first. I did it first. A lot of times when I used to go and do press junkets, and I stopped doing those years ago, but when I used to go and do press junkets, I never ceased to be amazed sometimes when I go into a room and people would stand to meet me, and these people who would be like larger than life on the screen, and like I would tower over them sometimes. Like Robert Downey Jr. was smaller than I thought he'd be. Tom Cruise, we all heard he's short, but he's a lot shorter than I thought. But man, that dude carries stature on screen. It's kind of crazy the way you can do that. So yeah, Crone Doggy, that actually did happen a lot. And then I just got used to it, so it stopped phasing me. Then you come into the room and you meet some guys who are huge, like really big dudes, like Armie Hammer. I remember meeting Armie Hammer. It's like, oh my, he was big and thick and just like this huge dude. Henry Cavill's a big dude. Idris Elba's a big dude. So yeah, it kind of, the coin flips both ways a little bit. All right, Blu-ray Billy writes, saw Pets 2. It was meh. Mid-credit scene is great. I really like the first Pets, but I've been hearing some mediocre things about Pets 2. So we'll see. I didn't think the first Pets was great, but being a dog guy, I enjoyed it quite a bit. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm hearing a lot of things just like what you're saying, is that it's okay. So we'll see. Hopefully it's better than that. Crone Doggy writes, ever meet Dave Filoni? Great guy. He really gets Star Wars. How much he gets Star Wars is up for debate. He loves Star Wars. He absolutely loves Star Wars. As far as let me just see if I can find something here quickly. First of all, let me say that I absolutely adore Rebels. Rebels I thought was great. Unlike a lot of people, I'm actually not all that big. Everybody gets shocked when I say this. I'm not big on Clone Wars. I'm not big on Star Wars Clone Wars. A lot of people love that stuff, and I get it, and that's cool, but it's just never been for me. I was trying to pull up here. I've actually got a couple of pictures of me and Dave Filoni together. Yes, I've met Dave. Always has got the big cowboy hat. I'm super excited that he's directing some episodes of The Mandalorian, because clearly, I talked about this before, people have been saying for years that he should be directing a Star Wars movie. I'm like, no. Dude's never directed anything live action before. Directing live action is very different from directing animation and all that kind of stuff. Give him something to cut his teeth on first. And what are they doing? Giving him a couple episodes of Mandalorian, which is perfect, because now he's going to cut his teeth on doing live action. He's going to feel the differences between directing a bunch of animators and actually working in a physical environment with physical actors. I am telling you, they are grooming him to direct a Star Wars movie pretty soon. They are grooming him to do that. Let's see how he does on Mandalorian, but I think he's going to do a good job, and once that's done, you're going to hear pretty soon. Maybe it'll be one of the Benioff and Weiss movies. Maybe it'll be something else, but sometime soon you're going to hear Dave Filoni is going to be doing a Star Wars movie. Evan Tainment writes, songs were great, maybe just sloppy editing. I thought the editing in Aladdin was actually quite good. There were a few things that weren't top-notch, for sure. Even I think that, and I like the movie a lot. But I thought the editing was actually pretty good. Lewis Dudash just sends in a super chat. Thank you, Lewis. Kevin Lewis writes, Namor, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, Nova. Next non-Fantastic Four or X-Men hero. Ooh. Rob, there's two different ways we can look at that question. Number one, who do you want to see? Namor, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, Nova. I think I know what you're going to answer to that. But which one do you think has the best chance of actually getting made? If any of these would, and I think it's pretty low, but any of them would, what do you think would be the most likely one?
Well, we've already seen the Nova Corps, and they're going more cosmic. We're going to see the Eternals. We still don't know what happened to Xandar. We don't know where the Nova Corps is. The Nova Corps is a big deal. I think Nova, whether he gets his own movie or she gets his own movie, however they go with it, I think Nova's probably a good bet that we'll see, maybe even in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Who knows? But that's what I would go with Nova of that particular
and the
list.
one you would choose is obviously.
Well, I'm a huge Moon Knight fan, especially the Sienkiewicz Mensch Moon Knight, the early version of Mark Spector and Jake Lockley and Stephen Grant and all that. I would love to see Moon Knight.
All right. Let's see. Fernando Alvarez Juarez writes, Hey, John, do you think The Rise of Skywalker can beat The Force Awakens worldwide numbers, seeing it's the last of the Skywalker series, or do you think it'll match The Last Jedi's? I think it's going to come close to The Last Jedi's. I think it might even surpass Last Jedi, but I think it's going to be much closer to Last Jedi numbers than The Force Awakens. Look, you got to remember, part of the thing with The Force Awakens was it had incredible rewatchability. It had better legs than Endgame does. Outside of the first week, The Force Awakens second weekend numbers were better than Endgame's second weekend numbers. The third weekend were better. So it had really good legs. But it was the return of Star Wars. After being gone for so long, the fact that we never thought that after the prequels we would ever get another Star Wars movie again and all that kind of stuff, that played into it. So I'm seeing this movie doing really well, making big money, but I think it's going to come closer to Last Jedi numbers than it will be to The Force Awakens numbers. Rob, I think you and I have talked about this before. You concur, right?
I do concur. I look, The Force Awakens has anomalous box office for a number of reasons. It was a special time, special movie at the time. It was the return of Star Wars. It's never gonna. I don't think we're gonna see Star Wars do those kinds of box office numbers again. And there just isn't. Also, there's not the groundswell of wanting to see what happens with these characters. They haven't penetrated the cultural zeitgeist the way others have. I mean, I want to see it, but even watching all the Vanity Fair, there's a video of the Vanity Fair shoot where they're behind the scenes on the movie, and you can see all this stuff. There's been very little hype about it online. I think people are more excited for The Mandalorian, frankly. But
well,
I want
the movie's still 7 months away.
Well, it's true, and I do want to see it. I want to see where they're going to go, but I just don't think you've got the groundswell of support there.
All right, now listen, speaking of box office numbers and all that kind of stuff, we asked you guys a little bit earlier to give us your buy and sell on the whole notion that Lion King will beat Infinity War's opening weekend numbers to become the number 2 box office opening movie of all time. Some projection numbers have it doing that. I think it's going to come in just a little bit under. What did you guys think? Well, as of right now on the poll, a little over 4,000 of you have voted. 17% of you buy the idea that Lion King will debut with a bigger opening weekend than Avengers Infinity War. However, 83% of you seem to agree more with me and Rob on this one, thinking that it won't. I do think it's going to be closer than most people think. I just don't think it's actually going to hit that number per se. So we'll see how that goes. But yep, by an overwhelming majority, you guys sell the notion that Lion King will debut with a bigger opening weekend than Infinity War to be the number 2 just behind Endgame. So we'll find out soon enough how that's all going to come about. All right, let's keep moving on here. We just got a few minutes left here, so let's keep rolling. The next one comes to us from Pumped Up Kicks 29, who writes, "Happy Memorial Day, everybody. John, you talk so much about Lucifer that I started watching it. I'm 13 episodes in and I cannot stop. Thank you. Thank you for checking out such a great show and for supporting it. We got to get as much support going for it as possible because I really want to see an episode 5 or season 5, especially with the way season 4 ended. For those of you who've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Thanks for sharing that, Pumped. I'm glad you're enjoying the show, man." Christopher Benson sends in a super chat. Thank you, Christopher. Jerome Lim writes in, "I did a double feature of Aladdin and Detective Pikachu yesterday. Not top 10, but certainly entertaining. Now it's Godzilla week. This is the movie I've been waiting for all year. Long live the king." And you know what, Jerome? I'm with you on both. I liked Detective Pikachu. I didn't love it, but it was adorable and it was cute and all that kind of stuff. So it was fine. I really did quite enjoy Aladdin, but I'm with you on Aladdin as well. It's not going to be a top 10 movie of the year, probably not even top 15, but I found it to be quite enjoyable. But Rob, everybody knows it's Ma week. It's the way. Oh wait, it's Godzilla. It's both Godzilla and Ma. To be honest, 2 movies I'm looking forward to both of them.
Ma looks great, dude.
It does.
Ma
look
looks great. I want to go party at Ma's house.
But also it's Godzilla opening this week, right?
Yeah.
Godzilla's
Godzilla
opening this
and Ma.
week. Ma's opening this week. I'm gonna see Godzilla tomorrow night. Actually, I think I'm seeing Ma and Godzilla both tomorrow night. So I'll be able to let you guys know what I think about it. Rob, you're obviously in love with Godzilla.
I do. I'm in love with Godzilla. Bring it on.
Cannot wait to see Ma as well. So we got a couple really, really good ones opening this week as well. All right, Jerome, thanks for sharing that, man. Next
I'm in
one
love
up.
with Ghidorah too, John.
Oh, yeah.
And
King.
Rodan's my favorite of all the Toho monsters.
Really?
I think Rodan, other than the original Godzilla, I think Rodan is my favorite. I think it's the best.
Nice.
It's scary and poignant. And if you haven't seen Rodan, watch the original Rodan, preferably subtitled. It's an incredible movie.
All right. Next one up comes to us from Christopher Benson, who writes, "Have either of you seen the 1998 sci-fi action masterpiece known as Deep Rising? If so, thoughts please. Hollywood Pictures at the top of its craft." You know what? I didn't mind Deep Rising.
Dude, it rules. It's Steven Sommers at peak Steven Sommers. He did Van Helsing and the Mummy movies after that. No. Deep Rising, Treat
Don't forget G.I.
Williams
Joe.
rules. Yes, but Deep Rising is awesome, and what an ending. And by the way, Kino Lorber released a great Deep Rising Blu-ray last year. Woohoo!
I always considered it a little bit of a poor man's Abyss.
Oh, it is.
It's a
poor man's Aliens. It's a poor man's everything.
But that reminds me, I got to go back and watch Abyss again. I haven't watched Abyss for a really long time. All right. Lone Wolf X5 writes, John, have you seen Godzilla Knock You Out trailer? No, I'm not even familiar. Rob, do you know what they're talking about?
Is that somebody cutting Godzilla to LL Cool J?
Maybe, because
Godzilla said knock you out.
Godzilla said knock you. Mama said, I'll have to check that out. All right. Marie Seifring writes, I got my tickets for June 1st to see Godzilla. I'm excited. Summer is here. And Rob, it is. Godzilla is one of those summer feeling movies, right?
It is,
man. It is one of those movies that just makes you feel, yep, summertime's here. This is the one we got to see.
Nothing says summer like a giant monster in the fires of Mount Fuji. That's what I always say.
Fires of Mount Fuji. So good on you for getting your tickets, Maria. I'm seeing it tomorrow night. I'll let you guys know as soon as I do what I think about it. All right. And our final question today comes to us from JB Bonifacio, who writes, saw Aladdin last night. The trailers really don't do it justice. Also started Fleabag on Amazon Prime. I've heard that's really good. A lot of people are sleeping on that one. Happy Memorial Day, everyone. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of people talking about Fleabag recently. Again, I don't have time for a lot of TV. I haven't checked that one out, but you're not the only one, JB, who's been saying some really good things about it. And I'm glad, and I agree. I do not think the trailers for Aladdin did it justice. Like, Rob and I saw the whole musical number of Never Had a Friend Like Me, and we were like, this is really good. So I'm a little bit curious why they haven't used a little bit more of that in the marketing, but then again, maybe they've wanted to keep that and just let it be more of a bigger surprise for the audience. So there's a lot of different ways of looking at that, I suppose. All right, guys, we're out of time now, but I'm just going to go through here quickly. Some of you guys have sent in some larger super chats. I want to make sure I get to those before we wrap things up. Ant Banks 1984 says, November 22nd, 1963, there was an assassination attempt on President Kennedy, but Captain America blocked the bullets with his shield. When asked how did he know in advance, he responded, he had a hunch. Get it? Get it? Because he's talking about the time travel. Get it? Plot holes, ladies and gentlemen. Plot holes. But well, hey, you could do, Ant Banks, you could do like a what if kind of movie on that. You could totally do that where Captain America starts going through and writing all the historical wrongs that happen. Of course, it would totally mess up everybody's timelines. And make
who's
things
to
even
say
worse.
it wouldn't have gotten worse?
That's the thing.
Stephen King's series,
anything,
November 22nd, what is 11/22/63?
Yep. Might have made things worse. All right. Next, do we have another one? Yes. Next one comes to us from Tall Dude 3231 writes, hey, John, thank you for being on this morning. Best way to wake up. Well, thank you for joining us, man. I appreciate it. Loved Aladdin and its music numbers. Do you think Lion King will have grandioso musical numbers? We have yet to see it in the theater. When you look back at the original animated, other than I Just Can't Wait to Be King, and Be Prepared, there's not a lot of big numbers. Like Hakuna Matata is a relatively small number. Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Relatively small number. Obviously, you got Circle of Life as an opening sort of thing, but I don't expect them to do anything huge and grandiose. This is all the animals and stuff like that, so probably nothing on that scale. Rob, do you?
No, I mean, I don't see that. I think I see it. They're going to sort of, I think, faithfully recreate, and then they'll throw in a couple of new ones. But yeah, I don't see anything.
All right, let me keep moving here. David Carter writes, what are your favorite movies that bring a piece of history alive for you? Mine is The Lives of Others.
Oh, that's such a good movie.
Ooh, that's a good one. There's a couple of JFK ones that are really good for me. Miracle on Ice was a big one for me. Do you got any, Rob?
Well, you know, as somebody, I was going to say cheeky something like Gladiator. but that's, you know, I know what you mean. I think like The English Patient.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm a huge fan of The English Patient. I love The English Patient a lot. So that's the first thing that came to my mind.
All right. Wayne Edwards writes, hello, John and Rob. I love your work. After seeing Endgame, I rewatched Man of Steel. Yes. Love it. The themes of death, consequences, and what it means to be a hero and what it means to be human puts Man of Steel ahead of its time. Wayne, amen and amen. You are preaching to the choir, brother. This is a movie that is so misunderstood, I believe, so undervalued, I believe, and the single most underrated comic book movie of all time. I love this film. I even remember the late, great John Schnepp. He didn't think he liked Man of Steel all that much, and I kept raving about it, so he and I sat down and watched it again. We did a commentary of it, and he was like, you know what, watching it again, that's a lot better than I remember. This movie is brilliant. I don't care what anybody else says. It's all subjective, but I think this movie is bloody brilliant. I'm so glad you're on that train, Wayne. And like I said, you are preaching to the choir. Rob, I know you're also somebody who appreciates the Man of Steel.
I agree with everything you guys said. And I've always looked at Man of Steel as more of a science fiction first contact story in addition to a Superman story. And I mean, I loved it for that reason. I've always been baffled by the criticisms leveled at the film. Like, oh, Superman kills somebody. I'm like, what was he going to do with Zod? You can't put him in a prison. We've talked about this ad infinitum. It's like you can't. What's he going to do? Bury him on the moon? Throw him into the sun? Zod's just as powerful as Superman. There's nothing he could have done. He had to kill him.
And guys, that will do it for this. Now,
on that note,
for everybody else who had sent in super chat questions that we didn't have time for, don't you worry. I'm going to gather all of them up and we're going to address them in a companion video a little bit later today. Keep your eyes open for it. Your questions are going to get addressed. I want to thank the people joining me here today on this Memorial Day. First of all, of course, the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at RMBurnett, or my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, or theburnettwork.net, the website.
And of course, so kindly filling in for Ashley Whalen, our friend Corey Takei. Corey, where can people find you?
Thanks for letting me be on the show today. You can find me KAORIOUS everywhere.
And of course, you guys can follow me on social media simply at John Campea. Again, guys, don't forget, we got a companion video coming up a little bit later today. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Click the thumbs up button on the video below. That helps the channel as well. And guys, make sure you check out our Patreon campaign as well. That'll do it for us for now, guys. Thanks so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.